January 16, 2003, Cape Canaveral, Florida. The Space Shuttle Columbia launched on mission STS-107, carrying a crew of 7 astronauts. It was a scientific research mission filled with experiments and the promise of discovery. For 16 days, the crew orbited Earth, conducting their work, a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. On February 1, 2003, the shuttle began its descent. The nation watched, accustomed to the routine of shuttle landings. But this time, something was terribly wrong. As Columbia re-entered Earth's atmosphere, pieces of the shuttle began to break away. A fiery trail across the Texas sky, then silence. The shuttle disintegrated, killing all 7 astronauts on board. The cause was quickly identified: a piece of foam insulation, roughly the size of a briefcase, had broken off the external fuel tank during launch, striking the left wing. This impact created a hole, allowing superheated atmospheric gases to penetrate the wing structure during re-entry, leading to its catastrophic failure. But this wasn't just a physical failure. This was a profound psychological collapse within NASA, the psychology of normalization of deviance that allowed known risks to become acceptable, the psychology of organizational silence that suppressed critical concerns, the psychology of authority gradient that stifled dissenting voices. This is the story of how a culture of complacency, internal pressures, and a dangerous cocktail of psychological errors led to the loss of a national treasure and 7 precious lives, reminding us that even the most brilliant minds can be blinded by their own systems. To understand the Columbia disaster, we must first delve into the insidious psychological phenomenon known as normalization of deviance. This occurs when people within an organization become accustomed to a deviation from good practice, seeing it as normal and acceptable, especially if it doesn't immediately lead to disaster. The foam strike was not a new problem. It had happened on every single shuttle launch. Pieces of foam insulation, designed to prevent ice formation on the external tank, would routinely break off during ascent. For years, these strikes were observed, documented, and largely dismissed as an acceptable risk. Here's how normalization of deviance took hold at NASA. Repeated incidents, without catastrophe. For over 2 decades, foam strikes occurred, sometimes causing minor damage to the shuttle's thermal protection system (TPS) tiles. But crucially, none of these incidents had ever led to a catastrophic failure. Each successful mission, despite a foam strike, reinforced the belief that the problem was benign. It's always happened, and nothing bad has ever come of it, became the unspoken, yet powerful, justification for inaction. This created a dangerous feedback loop where the absence of disaster was interpreted as proof of safety, rather than a lucky escape. Lack of resources and schedule pressure. NASA, particularly after the Challenger disaster, faced immense pressure to maintain its flight schedule and operate within budget constraints. Investigating every foam strike thoroughly, especially those that seemed minor, would have been costly and time-consuming, potentially delaying missions. This external pressure subtly encouraged the normalization of the foam issue, pushing it down the priority list. Cognitive dissonance and rationalization. Engineers knew that foam strikes were not supposed to happen. They understood the potential for damage. However, to reconcile this knowledge with the reality of continued flights, they engaged in cognitive dissonance and rationalization. They convinced themselves that the foam was lightweight and couldn't cause significant damage, or that the tiles were robust enough to withstand it. They focused on the absence of catastrophic failure as evidence that their assumptions were correct, rather than questioning the assumptions themselves. Not a safety of flight issue. Over time, the foam strike was officially downgraded from a safety of flight issue to a maintenance or in-flight anomaly issue. This reclassification, driven by the normalization of deviance, psychologically reduced its perceived threat level within the organization. It became something to fix after the mission, not something that could prevent a safe return. The foam strike on STS-107 was larger than most previous incidents. A camera captured it, and engineers raised concerns. But the ingrained culture of normalization meant that these concerns struggled to gain traction. The system had become psychologically conditioned to accept the unacceptable, setting the stage for a disaster that was, in many ways, foretold by its own history. On February 1, 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated upon re-entry, tragically claiming the lives of all 7 astronauts on board. The cause, a piece of foam, about the size of a briefcase, broke off during launch and struck the left wing. It seemed minor at the time, but this single event set off a chain reaction, not just in the shuttle's structure, but within NASA's own culture. This is the story of how organizational silence and a steep authority gradient led to a preventable disaster. 16 days before the tragedy, engineers watching the launch footage spotted the foam strike. They were immediately concerned. They knew this could have caused serious damage to the shuttle's heat shield. Their requests to get clear images of the wing using spy satellites were repeatedly denied. Why? The problem wasn't a lack of technology. It was a deeply ingrained culture of what's been called the authority gradient. At NASA, there was a powerful hierarchy. Lower-level engineers felt immense pressure not to challenge the decisions of senior managers. This created a phenomenon known as organizational silence. Engineers began to self-censor. They hesitated to speak up, fearing they would be seen as alarmist or that their concerns would be dismissed without hard, irrefutable proof. This bring me data mindset was a huge barrier. Managers wanted definitive evidence of a catastrophic failure, but the engineers couldn't provide it without the very satellite images they were being denied. This created a deadly feedback loop. The engineers' concerns were filtered and watered down as they moved up the chain of command. By the time the information reached the top decision makers, the urgent warnings had been softened into a minor, manageable issue. The top brass, isolated from the ground-level anxieties, saw no reason to deviate from the planned mission. They believed in the system that had worked so many times before, blind to the fatal flaw that was silently traveling with the crew. The Columbia disaster, a powerful and heartbreaking lesson. It shows that in high-stakes environments, encouraging open communication and empowering every single person to voice their concerns isn't just good management, it can be the difference between life and death. It reminds us that the most dangerous problems are often the ones we read too afraid to talk about. Thank you for watching, and if you found this story important, please like and subscribe for more deep dives. February 1, 2003. High above Texas, the Space Shuttle Columbia was making its fiery return to Earth after a 16-day science mission. On board, 7 astronauts were just minutes from home. But on the ground, at Mission Control in Houston, engineers were watching their monitors with growing unease. The shuttle's sensors were going dark, one by one. What the crew didn't know, and what Mission Control was only beginning to piece together, was that Columbia was already coming apart. 16 days earlier, during liftoff, a briefcase-sized piece of insulating foam had broken off the external fuel tank and slammed into the leading edge of the shuttle's left wing. The impact, at over 500 miles per hour, punched a hole in the wing's delicate heat shield. Now, as Columbia plunged back into the atmosphere, superheated gas, hotter than the surface of the sun, was pouring through that breach. It was melting the wing's internal aluminum structure from the inside out. The first sign of trouble was the loss of temperature sensors in the left wing. Then, increasing drag started pulling the shuttle's nose to the left. The autopilot fought valiantly to keep the vehicle stable, firing its thrusters, but it was a losing battle. Back in Houston, the data stream cut out. Flight Director Leroy Kane locked the doors to Mission Control, preserving every piece of data for the inevitable investigation. On screens across the room, the shuttle's track had disintegrated into multiple pieces. The unthinkable had happened. In the aftermath, the Columbia Accident Investigation Board, or CABE, was formed. They recovered over 84,000 pieces of the shuttle, painstakingly reassembling the puzzle. They confirmed the foam strike was the physical cause. But their most damning findings went deeper. The investigation revealed an organizational culture at NASA that had normalized risk. Foam strikes had happened on previous flights, but because they never caused a catastrophic failure before, they were dismissed as an acceptable in-flight anomaly. It was a classic case of confirmation bias. Engineers who raised concerns about the potential danger were often marginalized. Management wanted to maintain the shuttle's tight launch schedule and didn't fully grasp the engineering realities. The CABE report called it a broken safety culture, one where the lines between acceptable risk and recklessness had blurred over time. The tragedy was not just a technical failure, it was a human one. It was a failure of imagination, of communication, and of leadership. The loss of Columbia and its heroic crew, Rick Husband, William McCool, Michael Anderson, David Brown, Cal Panichala, Laurel Clark, and Elon Raymond, served as a brutal lesson. It forced NASA to reevaluate its entire approach to safety, leading to significant changes in design, inspection, and decision-making processes for all future space flights. Their sacrifice, while a dark chapter in the story of space exploration, ultimately pushed us to be better, safer, and more humble in our quest to reach for the stars. Thanks for watching. February 1, 2003, Columbia, 7 lives lost. The Columbia disaster, coming just 17 years after Challenger, served as a painful, tragic reminder that even the most advanced organizations, staffed by brilliant minds, are vulnerable to the unseen forces of human psychology. The lessons are stark: the peril of normalization of deviance, the insidious process where dangerous anomalies become accepted risks simply because they haven't yet led to catastrophe. Vigilance must be constant, the danger of organizational silence, the collective withholding of critical information, driven by fear, pressure, or a perceived lack of data, can have fatal consequences. The importance of psychological safety, an environment where every voice, regardless of rank, feels safe to raise concerns and challenge assumptions, is paramount. A steep authority gradient can be deadly. Guarding against cognitive bias, the human mind's tendency to rationalize away uncomfortable truths or to seek confirmation of existing beliefs, must be actively counteracted. Transparency and open communication, information, especially about potential risks, must flow freely and be actively sought out, not suppressed or filtered. Columbia reminds us that human error is rarely a simple mistake. It is often a systemic failure, rooted in a culture that allows psychological biases to fester, leading to a collective blindness to danger. It's a testament to the fact that even with the best intentions, the human element can be the weakest link if not constantly monitored and challenged. The question isn't how could they miss the whole. The question is, where in my own life, or in the organizations I'm part of, am I seeing signs of normalization of deviance, organizational silence, or reluctance to speak up? Am I dismissing small problems because it's always been that way? Am I creating an environment where others feel safe to voice their concerns, even if they're uncomfortable? The legacy of Columbia is a call to perpetual vigilance, a commitment to transparency, and a profound understanding that the human mind, while capable of incredible innovation, is also capable of self-deception that can lead to unimaginable tragedy.